Hello, everybody. I have a little bit of a lecture this week. Nothing prepared formally, um, but looking into the stages of development. And when you get to young adulthood, which is where many of you are, and some of us have surpassed, um, and emerging adulthood, which is preceding young adulthood. Theoretically, it'll go to your late teens, 19, 20, up until you're about 35. Now, we're all on our own timelines, okay? Um, I myself am not 35. But when you look at where your life is and you look at society's expectations and make a comparison, that's when things become problematic, one might say. And it is problematic, right? And young people in particular like to make these comparisons, and they like to say, well, this is where I should be, this is my career path, and so forth and so on. And they'd like to compare themselves to their peers. Enter the cell phone, enter social media, and then we compare ourselves with the highlight reel of other people. And so they're not posting online all their fails, they're posting their successes, but we don't see that. Okay. And so when someone meets me on the street, that's just Victor. Okay. They don't know what my life is. If they see me online, same thing. They don't know what my life is. They only know what I'm choosing to show them, just as if I were walking down the street. Only I'm able to show them much more to give them a false reality. Okay. In today's time. And so everybody thinks they need to have everything figured out. They think that they need to be millionaires by the time they're 25. Newsflash, okay? It doesn't happen. Okay? It happens to a very select few. And that very select few that it happens to tends to be because of inheritance or some kind of crazy something. And guess what? It's okay that that doesn't happen to you. In fact, I would argue it's a good thing. Okay? Folks who inherit millions, you're not going to hand the keys to the Lambo to a 16-year-old and expect it to come back in one piece. Okay? If you inherit $1 million, but you don't know what it takes to earn that $1 million, you're going to lose that $1 million. Like that. So, I don't think it's appropriate that folks my age and younger need to be worried about looking like they're millionaires by the time they're 25 or 30. They don't need to be worried about their here's the thing. You've got youth. You've got all the opportunities in the world for you. And when you walk through a doorway, let's imagine you walk in a hallway and there's all these doorways open. When you walk through one of those doors and you shut it behind you, because guess what? It shuts behind you whether you want it to or not. All those other doors that you had open also shut and lock. And then you have fewer doors in the next room you walk into that you can walk through from there. Now, some of the rooms connect to the other rooms. And that's what they don't tell you. Okay, is you walk through door number 1 and you have to go through five different doors to get back to door number 4 over here that you could have walked through originally. But it just depends on your life circumstances and your decisions at the time. And so some of us go directly to the door we want to be at, and some of us go to doors that we think we want to be at, but we really don't want to be at. Let me give you an example. I studied psychology in college. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the subject. But if I had it to do over again, I might study something different. Now, I really, really enjoy the subject, don't get me wrong, and I'm teaching you the subject. But where I am now in my life, I do this for a job, obviously, and I did psychology for a profession. And I found out that working in the private psychology world was not exactly my cup of tea. Now, working in the public psychology world, I can get on with, okay? So, in the public sector, which is government work primarily. Now, I can do that sort of stuff in psychology, but privately billing insurances, that's not what I want to be, okay? I don't want to act like I'm helping you and not actually be able to help you, okay? But here's the thing about government work. It's the same way, but you actually have a little bit of latitude to try to help people still. Very little, but some. In the private sector, it's all about billable hours. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you're getting into psychology to help others, it's an uphill battle. And everybody who's watching this, who's in my class, who's like, I'm going to help people. I'm going to study psychology to help people. Remember this. Remember this conversation when you get to your job as a social worker, or you get to your job as a lab technician, or you get to your job as a counselor. You remember we had this conversation. And you remember when your boss comes to your office and says, you don't have enough billable hours. Remember this conversation. So think about it, okay? If you're actually helping, you're not going to be worried as much about documenting that you helped as much as helping. Most places are worried about documenting that they helped as opposed to actually helping. And so the world isn't what we see, and nothing is as it seems. And as we age, we see this, okay? And what happens is you get out into the world, you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you're 21, 22, 23 years old, you finish college, you've got your little degree hanging on the wall, right? You got your degree hanging on the wall. Good for you. So does 30 or 40% everybody else. And I'm not trying to downplay it, but what I'm trying to say is it's more of a minimum requirement than it is you being wonderful. So walk into it humbly, okay? Walk into your work building after you get your degree with humility and understand that the old fogies that work in the office probably know more than you do, fresh out of college, because they do. So anyway, there's only so much you can learn in a class that I can teach you. You have to go out and experience it. But anyway, you get to this office, and then you realize that things are not what they seem at that workplace. And you're bright-eyed and you're like, well, man, I can change it. Good luck. Then you start to change it and you become the most hated person there, and then you leave because you hate the job and it sucks and all this sort of stuff. So you leave, you go find another job, and you find that the same thing is true there. Then you change industries because it must be this industry that's awful, okay? Then you change industries and then you realize, nope, it's all of them. It's all of them. And things are not what they seem, Okay. And it takes a person years to find that out. And I'm telling you now, but I'm telling you right now, most people who are listening to this are thinking I'm crazy and wrong, and I'm just jaded. And that's fine. You can think I'm wrong and crazy and jaded, and that's what young people do most of the time when an old person tells them the truth about the world. And so most of the time, old people just let them be young, let them enjoy it, and let them think that they know everything. Okay. And so you know a lot of facts coming out of college. You know a lot of knowledge that is just based on if x equals 1, x plus x equals 2. Okay, you can know those things. You can know the logical flow of things. And you can know that x equals 1. But what you don't see is that even though x plus x equals 2 in that scenario, when you're asked the question of what x plus x equals, you're expected to answer 3. And that's what you don't find out until later. But the truth is 2. It is. But you're not expected to say 2. You're expected to say 3. And for those of you who don't get it, that's fine. It's going to take you a few years, but you'll get it. For those of you who are probably non-traditional, you're like, yeah, he's telling the truth. So, I think that's kind of the ebb and flow of life. And young adulthood, our happiness tends to go downward. And so there's an inverse bell curve. So a bell curve, right? Inverse. Looks like a smiley face, right? And that's the happiness curve with age. So the younger you are, the happier you are. Until you get to middle age, which is the lowest part of that, which is around 45 is the low. From 35 to 55 is the lowest portion. And then your happiness tends to go back up again before you die. Before old age, during old age. And what we don't realize oftentimes is we all walk into this life like a poker game. And we have very few chips to start with. Whatever our family gives us is what we have to start with. And the cards we dealt and the hands we played ends us getting more poker chips sometimes, and sometimes less. And you can build crazy cool things with all the poker chips you can accumulate. Okay? And that is your life that you're building. And so you're building these crazy things with these poker chips. But at the end of the game, you all have to push your poker chips back to the center. And why do I say that? Because when you die, all the cool things you've accumulated, the cool things you've done, the cool life you've created gets pushed back into the middle. And no one can live the life that you've created. So you could build this huge rental portfolio, you could build all this sort of stuff, but nobody knows how to manage it like you do. Which is why when a 25-year-old inherits millions of dollars, that money ends up being wasted if they don't build it themselves or take part in helping their parents build it, or if their parents don't teach them the ways properly. So that's why generational wealth is lost usually. But anyway, poker chips are sent back to the middle when you die. Because your kids don't know how to do it the way you knew how to do it. Okay? And so that may sound depressing, but when you get older, you understand that that is the game of life. So there's no point in worrying about the small stuff. There's no point in worrying about that job loss. There's no point. There's just a job. Okay? when you're young, you're so full of hope, and the world looks wonderful and shiny and new, and things are wonderful. People care about you. But as you get older, those people who care about you tend to die because they're older than you. And the people that you create don't care about you. They care about themselves because they're in the new shiny part of things. Okay? But you care about them more than they care about you, which is parenting 101. Okay? And so then when you get older, when you're middle-aged, the people who cared about you have passed on. And the people that you care about are what's holding you together, but they don't care about you the same way. That's a tough pill to swallow. And then you think about how you treated your mom and dad and how you treated your grandparents. That gets deep. But anyway, if you think about these things young, you can maintain a level of wisdom throughout the remainder of your life quite easily. I started thinking about these things in my mid-20s, but I had a mentor who died at 58. He died when I was 27, but he was my mentor from the time I was 18 to the time I was 27. And he made me think about these things. And I'm thankful to have met him. And I miss him dearly, but I am thankful that he came into my life. So talk to those people who know things. They may look the mentor I had. I was raised by, my mom was a banker, my dad was a banker. I thought that life needed to be this fancy thing where you chase this career and things needed to be perfect and all this sort of stuff. Then I met him. He was a big dude. He was probably 500 pounds when I met him, 600 pounds. Wore bibbed overalls, had a can of chew in the whole thing probably at one time. Big crazy beard. Hat with holes in it. Shirt's very similar to this one. And I was afraid of him when I met him at 18 years old. And he taught me all these things because he was not what I perceived him to be. And then when I started talking to him, he spoke like an old country hillbilly, but his knowledge shined through his vernacular. Okay? His knowledge made sense to me. And he took the time to teach this snot-nosed kid the ways of his life. And I listened. And so the power of listening is the power of learning from other people's experiences. And so many of you have not watched this video. Trust me, I know. You've either not watched this video or you haven't made it to this point and you've clicked off, or you're watching something else and you've got me playing on the background and mute. And that's fine. You missed. You missed the opportunity. You get to take the 10 years it took for me to get to the point where I am here with a mentor. Maybe your entire life to figure these things out. But anyway, I'll keep it more brief. Young people are looking to build a family. They're looking to build a career. And they're looking to build, overall, a life for themselves. And I've seen a lot of things recently with people blaming external circumstances, such as the housing market, for them not being able to buy a house, or whatever, insert excuse here. Well, guess what? The world does not care about you. It doesn't. So forget all those external excuses and create a way to do it. Create a way to do it. If you haven't spent your time looking for an opportunity to do something good with your life and to support yourself and to create the life you want to create, if you're not spending time doing that every week and every day, you're messing up. because you only got this one life. You've only got this one shot. And guess what? We're all going to die at the end. So you're going to fail. And you're going to pay the ultimate price someday. So you might as well do it. You might as well do what you want to do. You might as well go out and chase your dream. Now, some word of caution. At a young age, we often don't know what our real dream is. And that's the problem. So when you go to college and you pick a college major and you don't know what your real dream is, you tend to pick the wrong major. And then you've spent 4 years and then you've got sunk costs into it. And then you're mentally like, oh, I can't go back now. I'm not going to go back and go get another degree. So I'm going to go ahead and get a master's degree in it. You got more sunk costs. Okay. So young people picking out their destiny is really oftentimes a bad idea, but we do it anyway, and that's the only way to do it. So instead of just picking something with other people's influences, think about what truly brings you joy on the inside. What could you do for hours? And if it's video games, okay, fine. Don't pick video games as a career, but figure out what common thread those video games have that you can study. What within the video game makes you tick. Okay? So that's my advice for that. But people place too much emphasis on their careers to begin with, because it's not actually your career that's going to give you fulfillment. It's not. I'm sorry. I'm going to break most of your hearts. But if your career is your only sense of fulfillment, you have messed up. You have messed up in your life, because you can be fired for any reason and your career does not care about you. Seek fulfillment in the life that you have control over, which is your relationships with others to some degree. You have the control over your side of that relationship. And that's also very powerful to know. You can do everything in your power to try to help someone and love them, and they can push you away. But if you've done everything in your power, you can rest easy knowing that you've done what you can do. In a career, you can do everything the right way and everything the way they tell you to do everything, and the same can happen. So these feminists from back in the day said, don't rely on any man because he can cheat and leave you and do all this stuff. How's that any different than a career? Firing you because they had 1/4 of lower income than normal. But you've busted your butt for 29 years and you were coming up on retirement. So guess what? They didn't want to pay your retirement. So they fired you. And you gave up having kids. And you gave up a family so you could have this career that fired you. Wow. So that's a tough pill to swallow too. You've got to do what makes you happy. And it should not be connected to a career. Do a career that you like. Try to find a career that you like. Please do that. But don't rely on that as your sense of purpose and fulfillment. Also, don't rely solely on your family as a sense of purpose and fulfillment. That is a better sense of purpose and fulfillment. But don't rely strictly on them, because they can crush you as well. You must do the things that you want to do that make you happy. Now, I'm not going out and advocating breaking the law. Do things within the law. I promise you, you do not want to be in prison. I've been there. Not as an inmate, but I've been there. And they paid me to be there, and it was awful. You don't want to go there. But stay within the law. But do the things that make you happy. And find what those things are, because most people don't know what they are. Spend time finding what they are. And so I won't make this any longer, but I will say it has been a pleasure teaching many of you this semester. And I want you to watch this, and I want you to take anything you can from it, even if you're non-traditional. We can all learn from one another. And so this is a lecture on youth and on folks from pretty much 19 to 25 to 35, that area, young adulthood and emerging adulthood. But many of us don't figure this out until later. We don't figure it out till later. And when you figure it out, and when you're truly enlightened, okay, enlightenment and knowledge, the more knowledge you have, the more depressed you seem to feel at first. And then true enlightenment happens after you've internalized that knowledge and applied it to the outside world. And then enlightenment comes. And then enlightenment means you're no longer grounded by the things that don't matter. Okay? There could be something going on in these walls. Now, I have spent 10 years nearly building this house with my own two hands and my sweat, blood, sweat, and tears. Okay? It could burn down tomorrow. It could burn down tomorrow. I could lose it all. And that would suck. Okay? But the enlightenment is I know that. And I can act accordingly. And so that means I don't place all my happiness into this. I don't place all my happiness into this degree. Honestly, this degree was under my couch when my wife moved in. So was the master's. Covered in dust. And she was like, you need to hang those up. I was like, well, I guess I get them out of the way. Okay? I'm just telling you. That stuff doesn't matter. I worried way too much about my grades. If you see those little bitty words under that red thing there, it says summa cum laude. I worried so much about keeping a 4.0. And all I have is these little words you can't even read on the screen. On a piece of paper that was hanging out under my couch, covered in dust. No one asked me, did you graduate with top honors? Did you graduate with summa cum laude? No one cares. No one cares. I don't even care. But I worried so much about that for 4 years. 6 years, if you want to be honest. In a program that I might not have even done if I had to redo it today. I would do it a different way. Keep things into perspective. Have a wonderful evening.